In this video, I'm going to talk about how to add emissive features to your model. But there's something I want to do right before I begin, which is this little caution thing here. I didn't actually put it in the right layer. I put it up here in this top paint layer when all my decal stuff should go down here. And this is really more of an embossed thing. So it would make sense to me if I wanted to have embossed areas. Those embossments should show up in the generator, so that they have, you know, edge wear and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to actually just get rid of this. We'll just go to the eraser and get rid of it. And if it makes sense at some point down the road to add it back in properly, I will do so. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush here. So what I'm going to do first, before I begin anything else, is we go to texture set settings, and we have all of our channels. So base color, metalness, roughness, normal, and height. We need to add emissive so that we have it as an option in our when we add a fill or something. So now I'm going to go over to my layers. We can collapse these things here. Going to add a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder emissive. I'm going to turn symmetry on. Actually, I guess I've got to add a fill first. Drop the fill in. I'm going to call this dark red for reasons that will be apparent shortly. And in dark red, we want to turn everything off except for our newly added emiss channel here. And I'm going to set it to some kind of red value, and you can see everything starts glowing. So I'm going to add a black mask, and I'm going to add a paint. You can paint directly into the masks, but I always prefer to have a paint so that I can manage it. Add new paints or add filters or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically put lights in these little slots here, and you can definitely come in and just slap something in. Make sure I've got my paint set up properly. You know, like this. Maybe I get rid of my little fall off so it's a little bit sharper on the edges. And then in your shader settings, which you can also get to by going Windows, Views, Shader Settings right here, you have this emissive intensity slider, and you can just turn it up. And that is something that you see on a fairly regular basis, but emissive can be so much cooler than this if we just add a little bit of stuff to it. It is useful to have this turned up somewhat so that we can see what we're doing as we edit this thing. So this is my dark red. And I'm going to make it even darker than that, because what I want to do is I want to basically give the impression that there is a feature here that has a piece of glass over the top of it, and then there's some kind of incandescent bulbs inside of here, and then along the interior boundary, crap has kind of gotten in over the years, and so there's going to be a nice kind of gradient between where we see the lights burning and the edges here. So I want to start with a dark red. And then I'm going to add just a regular red on top of that. And we can delete this paint, add a new paint. And I'm going to keep the same brush, just kind of make it a little bit smaller. Make sure I've got all of my other stuff set up, including making my red value a little bit brighter. So you can see I put a spot down before realizing something was amiss. And let's see if this will work now. So clearly I hit an undo there. So I want this to line up fairly well. And I keep hitting undo on stuff and it keeps changing things I don't mean to change. So I'm just going to erase it. And if you hold shift, you get that straight line, which can be very nice. So now in my paint here, I'm going to go down to one of these dirts. Dirt one's fine. And I want to reduce the stroke opacity a little bit. Set it to black. And what I'm really looking for, in fact, we can reduce the flow too, is I just want to break up that hard boundary with something that's a little bit rougher. And kind of now that I'm looking at this, I might Might want to go back in and make that stroke a little bit thicker so I've got less of the dark red area. I could also very easily go in and just throw a blur on there, which is probably what I'll do. So we'll add a filter and a blur, and the intensity is going to be too high at the default value, so we can try 0.1, maybe 0.2. Okay, so we'll live with this. This little inconsistency there is exactly what I'm going for. And then on this one, I'm going to call this layer orange, and we can get rid of these, add a new paint in. And then let's see, for orange, we're going to need to modify the value so that we're a little bit warmer. Head over to the paint. Let's see, I need to set this back to painting full white, and the flow and opacity, we don't have to put them all the way up at 100. That's too much variation there in this brush, so I'm going to just go back to the basic hard. Maybe soften it up a little bit. So you can see how intense that is. Definitely more intense than what I am going for here. But we will punch that out as well. So let's just see what kind of options we have in our whatever sponge might be nice. And now we need to come in and paint black. And these guys can be a little bit lower. Just trying to break it up a little bit. And it's definitely too bright. I think it's cool, but I kind of want to save that heavy of a punch for the next layer. I'm going to go ahead and add a filter here. And we can just blur that, not quite that much, just a tiny bit. So here we have this transition, right? We're going from a dark area to a progressively more illuminated area, and now I'm going to make another layer, and we'll call this one yellow, and we'll add a paint, and I'm just going to use the basic hard here and make a little bit of a going down like this. I need to modify my values. Oh, you know what? I think I probably had that set to black. Painting black instead of white. And for this, I'm going to add a little bit of spacing to my stroke. I don't know how much is going to work. I need a little more than that. There we go. So we get this kind of old LED vibe, or old incandescent vibe, I mean. They look kind of hot in there. And in the next video, we're going to continue working on this so that it feels more integrated into the geometry and feels like it's got a little bit of a glass lens on top of it.